Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool arcade game repair video for you today. This is actually a jukebox. This is a 1970 Rock-Ola 445 jukebox. We bought this off of a guy recently and it ain't working. So we're going to fix it. Nobody's fixing these jukeboxes anymore. They're starting to destroy a bunch of them. We got to save them all. But the good news is you can get them cheap, so that's good. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up and we'll see if anything's missing and see what we're working with here. Okay, so we opened it up. Thing still has the key on it, so the door holds up. So this is, like I said, is 1970, so this thing is nearly 50 years old now. We're filming this in early 2019. So it's kind of got the older selector set up with the solenoid. All that should clean up pretty good. It's only a 100 record box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. No, I'm wrong. It's only a 50 record box. 100 selections, 50 records. Got the two, I guess those are 5x7 speakers on the top there. I wonder what this is for. It's lights, it says. Well, that's the display. Okay, so in the back we've got the amplifier over here. It says integrated circuit stereo amplifier. So this is not a tube amp. And then over here you've got your power stuff. Lots of fuses and stuff. And then over here was where the coin mech was, but the operator has removed the coin mech. They did that a lot whenever they sold these to people for their home because they didn't want you to be able to take money for it. They didn't want you to be able to operate it and be their competition. Alright, and then we got the basket here. This is Rock-Ola's pretty standard carriage and setup mechanism. I guess they must have had two different sizes. I haven't had one that's this smaller size like this before. Usually whenever we get them, they hold 100 records. 200 selections. But this one is 100 selections, 50 records. So the guy gave us the same story everybody always gives us. It used to work. So it used to work. You know, who knows what's wrong with it now? So we're starting from scratch, people. So we don't know anything about it except that it used to work, and it looks like everything's in it except for the coin mech, which you don't need. So I think what I'm going to do is take this front door off so that we can look underneath it and see if anything looks screwed up down there under it. I imagine it's probably just the mechanism won't turn well, or there's a fuse blown, or the amp needs rebuild or something like that, but we'll see what we can figure out. Alright, so I popped the door off. Look how cool this thing looks. It's got a couple of woofers. I guess those are 12s, if I was going to guess. Couple woofers. And like I said, it's 1970. Look how the connectors and stuff were back then. Pretty cool. So I cleaned up the bottom a little bit. Got it about as good as I can get it. And so what usually happens with these old jukeboxes is they sit around for years and the gears get gummed up. So like the oil dries and gets all gummy because people spray WD-40 and crap like that on it. Look how messed up all that is. So it's just probably just froze up. So we're going to try to get it to unseize by putting a bunch of oil on it. But that might not be what's wrong with it. But one way we can tell is on these motors, like this motor here, there's a little thing on the bottom that you can turn to move the motor. That. So if you turn it by hand, see the gear there moving? If you turn it enough, eventually it'll pull the bow in and lift it up and put it where it's supposed to go. So that wasn't going that way. Let's see if I'm going the right way. So we'll go back the other way. So I can't tell which way is pulling it in and which way is pushing it out. But it appears to me like it's just all gummed up. So this little motor here spins, it's freed up, and it turns this little rubber wheel here, which pushes on the inside of the turntable there to make it do its thing. Usually all that's working good. Usually it's these gears here, and it's almost always because somebody sprayed WD-40 on it. So I guess we're ready to turn it on now and see if it does anything. And we'll see what happens when you plug it in. Okay, so we have turned it on, and there's this little, on most jukeboxes, there's this little switch here, operate, off, and scan. So it's in operation mode right now. It has a read-in circuit and a read-out circuit, or they may call it write-in and read-out. But basically, whenever you select something, this little thing here on the inside moves around and knocks down these little pins. So see how that one pin is facing down and the other one's facing up? So this thing goes around and the little solenoid, bam, makes it knock one of those pins down. So you saw those two were down. So since it had two down, I don't know how when that happens it knows that one's down, but somehow it knows that one of the pins is down. So whenever you make the selection, this thing turns around until it gets to the right spot, which it can tell by these wiper blades on the inside, and it knocks one of these pins down. Bam! So now that's the record that you selected. So then it starts the read out circuit. So this outside wheel, which is connected to the basket, spins around, and there's a little thing on there that whenever it finds the one pin that's on the outside, whenever the one pin that's pushed up, it has like a brake thing where it stops immediately right there. The solenoid fires and resets it, and that means that it's lined up with the selection. The record's over here, so it starts the next part where the thing picks up the record and puts it down. So the read out is not working right, which is probably because of the contacts being dirty on the side, but I don't know that for sure. But that's what we're looking for here, folks. And you can see the turntables working. This thing here is it's a counter. Whenever these little things are pushed out, or maybe the ones that are in, but basically that's how you can keep track of how many times each record's been played. If you put this switch in off, it turns it off. If you put it in scan, it just moves it till you stop, which is how you can move the basket around to put your records where they go. So what I'm going to do is, just for giggles, we'll put it back and operate, but nothing's selected. So let's see if it'll select. I don't know if there's any credits on it or not. Nothing's lit up or anything. I don't even know. I'm sure you could do something up here to put credits on it. Let's see what that one light is. It says select any single record. Alright, so let's try playing K9. Arf arf. So the read in is turning, but it can't find K9. It shouldn't ever have to go past more than twice. So it's just continuously spinning. That's because it can't tell where it's at, which is probably because of the contacts on the fingerboard there. It could also be because of the contacts up here. Maybe it, I don't know completely, but maybe whenever you selected it, it knew enough to start looking for something, but it can't read which ones you've got selected. So it's one or the other, right? Or it could be that there's something that makes it stop, like a brake voltage or something that stops the voltage, and maybe that's not making good contact somewhere. So it's like most things, it's bad connections everywhere. Once you get everything clean and shiny and everything and oiled and all that, it'll come back to life. So I think what I'm going to try to do is clean those contacts on the wiper blades on the inside and the outside the best I can, and we'll see if that changes anything. Alright folks, so I cleaned the little contacts we were looking at on the inside and the outside, the right in and the read out. Turned it back on, no different. And then I took the two relays off. So this one relay is the right in relay and the other one's the stop relay. I took them apart and cleaned them, put them back in. Still no dice. But while I was messing with the little pin bank, I pushed one down and had it screwing around and everything like it was doing. It never wrote in one, but I did it manually. And when the readout went around, it grabbed it and it tried to start playing a record. So like I was talking about, the gears were all jammed up. But since it was actually trying to pull in the record and set it down, I thought, well, hell, I'll work on the gears for a while. So for 45 minutes now, I've been oiling these gears. You can take this whole thing apart, but it is a job. Someone who's really good with jukeboxes can take that whole thing apart and get it nice and clean like it needs to be. But I'm not that good at it. I'll end up breaking something. Some of those pieces are cast too, so they'll, or I guess they're like pot metal or something, but they will break. I've had one before where a piece was broke on it. But I just oiled it, and basically it's trying to make it work through its gears, right? So I put it in the off position, oil it a little bit, try to work it a little bit. Basically, the first thing it does is it tries to push out this little piston here to grab the record while it's over there. It tries to push out that piston, so I kept messing with that till I got it where that could go in and out like it should. And then once it gets that piston out, it tries to lift the whole thing in the air. And it's doing it by this motor here, the gear turning this bigger gear. So all of that stuff has to be oiled and everything. But like I was saying earlier, usually what's going on is somebody sprayed WD-40 on it, and that stuff literally turns to glue. After about 5 years, WD-40 turns into just nasty gunk where everything's glued up. So don't use WD-40. Use like a 3-in-1 oil or just a real light oil. But oil also cleans, so it would be better if you took the whole thing apart, cleaned each piece, put it back. But I found that usually you can get them working great by just oiling the hell out of them. It makes a big mess. You have to clean it all up later. But usually you can do it while it's still in the machine. So I messed with it, got it to go all the way up and sit down, and then got it to put the needle over. But then as soon as I did it, the turntable stopped moving. So I started looking, and the way that it knows all of that is there is a little cam that goes on the back of the thing with the switches, and it was still on there, but it was, somebody had moved it around with the set screws to where it would just free spin. So there's a certain position that it's supposed to be in on there, and what it does is it has all of these little holes and stuff, little slopes and ramps where it turns on and off certain switches at certain times. So that's how it tells it to turn on the well, I think that's how it tells it to unmute the amp and all of that stuff. So I have to get this back in the right spot. So I'm going to look in a manual and see if I can figure out what spot that's supposed to be in while it's playing. I think that's how you set it up. You do it whenever the record's all the way down. If you have to do it when the record's all the way up, we'll reverse it and get it to hang the record back up, and then try to adjust it. So here's the manual. Check out this little picture. Isn't that so illustrative? Illustrative. Micro switch and cam adjustment. Cycle of the record mechanism is controlled by the operation of 3 micro switches actuated in the proper sequence by a rotating camshaft. To adjust, phonograph must be in standby position, which is the gripper arm over the record magazine. Oh no, we're backwards. And the service scan switch moved to off. Rotate the knurled end of the gripper motor shaft, that's what we were looking at messing with earlier, counterclockwise until a jam occurs. At this point, the number 1 switch roller must be in the cam groove and in contact with the back drop-off. So see what they mean by that? It's inside so this is the number 1, which is the one in the middle, of course, right? So that one is inside that hole that we were looking at, but look, it's got to be in contact with the back side of the hole too. And that gets it all lined up perfectly where everything's doing what it does. But first thing I have to do is I've got to get that damn record arm all the way back over where it was. And you know how I got to do that? I got to turn that little knob all the way back, right? So I'll go do that. Luckily, you won't have to suffer through it. So we're about halfway, and I've already worn a blister on my hand turning that damn knob. So you might want to wear gloves if you have to do it that much. Okay, folks, so we got it back to the home position, and I kept turning it until it got in a bind. So they said counterclockwise, so if you were looking from underneath, it would be this way, which is the same way we were turning it. So you just keep turning it until it won't stop turning. I mean, it won't turn anymore. So now we'll try to put this cam back in the right place. So I'm going to turn it off. Who knows what those switches are wired to. Right? So that should be up in there. Trying to bend the switch alike. Okay, so you see how it's down in the valley. So we want it bam like that where it's touching the back. And that'll do it. So I need to set it up just like that. So I'll go ahead and tighten it up, and then we'll turn it back on and see what we get. So the cam is mounted back on there, so we'll turn it on and see what happens. We're in the off position. Okay, nothing happened, so that's good. Right. So we'll switch it to operate and see if it's still carrying the old selection. Nope, not doing nothing. Let's try scan. It was like it tried to pick up a record. There we go. And so it thinks it's playing. I don't know why it's doing that while it's in the scan position instead of the operate position, but hey, it looks like we at least got the gear kind of doing its thing. But it should be moving the carousel. Whoop. It should be moving the carousel, not moving the, not trying to play a record. So I don't know what that's all about. Let's see if we, Probably a good way to get shocked. That's the right end. All right. Just turning that on back there. So if, okay, so it thinks that there's a record to play. All right, so we just canceled it. Let's see if it finds the record. It did find the record. So it thinks it's playing that record. And then it reset the pin. All right, so I'll do that again. So we'll pop this one down up here. So the right end should go around and pop this one down, let's say. Right? So when this record finishes, and it's just lamping along, I'm not saying that we fixed anything, we're figuring out how it works. So when this record fixes, and by the way, the needle's hanging down beside the turntable, so we're not messing anything up doing that. But when this record finishes, when it gets to the end of the record, it hits a little switch over here which cancels it. So it hangs it up, and then this readout will start turning as the basket starts turning, right? And when it gets around to that pin, it'll feel that it's up, and it'll stop. It'll push the record down, and when the needle comes over, this little solenoid, there's a little solenoid right there, will fire and pull that in, which will push the pin back up, if that part's working right. So let's see. So we're playing our record, we get to the end, it cancels, it turns, see that pin? It missed it. Let's see if it gets it the second time. I think they go around twice. Yep. So it caught it the second time. It lays it down. Oh, I didn't show you it resetting it. We'll do another one real quick. So watch, it'll miss it the first time. Well, no, it might get it this time. Yeah, it got it. So watch, whenever it lays it down, it'll hit that little pin. See the pin go up? I don't know why it stopped again, but the thing's kind of working. We're getting there. So I need to, I guess maybe we could put a record in it, but I don't know. I can't just hit those pins and know which one's which. We kind of need to get the right end to work. Right in. Let's see if we can look in the manual and see if we can figure out anything about the right end. Okay, folks, we're going to go to Rock-Ola school here so we can figure out what the hell's going wrong with this thing. So you saw what's happening. If I do selection K9, it never finds it. I tried a different selection. I did K1 too, and it never found it. It just keeps spinning. So we're going to read how it works. So this is the manual. It says, just how the Rock-Ola phonograph accomplishes the request of its customers will be discussed in two selection phases, write in and read out. So we're having a problem with write in. It never writes it all the way in. Right? So there's our little selector assembly that we've been messing with. All right, and the Rock-Ola people say, we will first explain the right-end selection phase. On the right-end side of the selector assembly, each lever represents a musical selection. There are either 100 or 160 levers depending on the phonograph model. So we've got the 100 one. The outer lever of each set of two represents the top side of the record. The inner lever is the bottom side. So this one's the top, this one's the bottom. Or as they're showing, top, bottom. Okay. Figure 2. When a customer makes a selection, circuits are connected to the printed circuit disc to pinpoint a specific record selection. So, you know, you saw all this on there. This is actually the bigger one. Ours is the smaller one, but it, you know, it looks about the same. And you saw me, I cleaned all of the little contacts, right? On the disc are 80 contacts in the outer ring, which is only 50 contacts on the 100 selection models. Each contact represents one record, not a record side, right? So there's 50 contacts, and it tells you the record, which record it is. The next ring is a band broken into 8 segments, only 5 segments on the 100 selection model, which is what we've got. So that's this one. So it says segment 1. This one. Each segment encompasses with it 10 contacts. So see, this segment has 10 contacts on it, right? The next bands relate to the side of the record. A, the top side, and B, the bottom. So this is the record, this is the segment, this is the B band, this is the A band, and this is the ground circuit in the middle, right? The innermost band is a common ground circuit for the carriage hammer coils. Okay. As mentioned previously, each contact represents one record. Since each record side has a musical selection, they are represented by sets of 2-letter buttons. That's a little bit confusing. For example, selection buttons A and B represent the first contact record in each segment. C and D represent the second contact record. And U and V, the last record. For 100 selection models, letter buttons end with K. So it goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K on the jukebox. The first letter of each side represents the top side of each record, the second letter to the bottom side. So let's go look at the jukebox to make sure we've got that right. I don't know if I can get the... Okay. So here's one of the things. So you see you put a label in there, and so the first record is A1 and B1. So the first side is A1, the second side is B1. The second record is C1 and D1. So this are all the ones, and then it comes down to here, and it starts on 2s. So after it goes JK, it goes back to 2. So when you get to the last one, you get the 0, right? So G9, H9, J9, K9, A0, B0, blah, 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 and you get down to K0. For example, selection buttons A and B represent the first contact record in each segment. Let me get the phone. You think it's a spam call? Probably. All right, it wasn't a fake call. Everything's cool. I'm back. All right, so they're telling you that each one of those little rivets is for each record, and then if they press, the first rivet must be either A or B, the second rivet must be either C or D, the third rivet must be E or F, etc., because it's the A side or the B side of each record. The first letter of each set represents the top side of each record, the second letter, the bottom side. Clearly, right? We're being very pedantic here, but I need to be so I can understand what the hell's going on, right? The pressing of a number button as 7 designates the segment and selects the proper band to play the correct record side. Number 7 then completes our selection, giving segment 7 record C top side, eliminating all other choices. So they're saying C7. So if they said C1, they would, or C0 or whatever, they'd be way over here. Note that the A and B bands, which represent the record sides, are divided into semicircles. This arrangement is only for 160 selection phonographs. Of course. If the record selection involves numbers 1 to 4, only the left band is activated. If the record selection involves numbers 5 to 8, the right band is activated. But again, that's just on the 160, so we don't have to worry about that. So basically, they've got all of these contacts. You know, this one is A. So if you press A or B, it makes this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. They're all daisy chained together like that. It makes all of them live. By pressing that button down, you just put power on those. Right? So then whenever you press 7, you only put power on this segment. Right? And so you press C7, so the C here has power, but also the C up here has power, the C up here has power, the C up here has power, but you pressed 7. Right? Now I don't know, I still don't understand how it knows which one's A and B, but whatever. We'll move on though. We're not having that problem yet. And so they give you this big diagram that kind of shows you how everything connects together. Blah, blah, blah. but then it describes it to you, right? Specific circuits are now connected to the selector. So you pressed C7. It's at the top. 7 and C. C7. Specific circuits are now connected to the selector. These circuits must be located and acted upon. This is done by a right-in motor that rotates wipers over contacts and segments looking for a live circuit. How is the AC right-in motor started? Okay, so we've got this far, right? When we hit K9, which we'll now call C7, just like in the manual, when we hit C7, all this starts. It starts moving around. So we're this far. All this is so far we've done, right? The selection of a letter and number button as C7 moves latch and lock bars. This causes switch 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 to close. So underneath the control panel, whenever you press these buttons, it makes little switches go together. That just always connect. So whenever you press the number, it makes one go together, and when you press the letter, it makes one go together. Once you do that, that's what starts the motor. So the whole thing is, it doesn't know which one you've pressed yet. Okay, so how is the AC right-in motor started? So we're getting that happening. It's starting the right-in motor, right? The selection of a letter and number button, as in C7, moves the latch and lock bars. This causes switches 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 to close. Switches 5 and 6 operate the right-in relay, K3, right? So right-in relay, you know, I talked about how we clean that. Contact 3, or contact 1 in it goes to K3, blah, 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 blah. The K3-1 contact starts the right-in motor 10, right-in carriage arm 11 rotates. Right-in motor 10, which makes the right-in carriage arm 11 rotate. So that's happening. But notice that they didn't say that it's reading the actual buttons that you pressed. All it is physically when you press this down, it makes a couple switches close. So once you press one letter and one number down, it makes some switches close, which makes the relay come on, which starts the motor moving. So the reason that it's just moving and continuously moving and not doing anything is because the part before that, where it energizes the contacts on the plate that we were talking about, that part's not working right. So for whatever reason, we're not getting a good connection from the power that's inside the selector assembly all the way to the energizing the little rivet or the little segment or whatever on the little metal. What the hell would it be called? the little track on the plate, we'll call it. What are they calling it? They're calling it a band. So the power is not getting to that. So that little motor is started by the buttons physically pressing down, but two of these are supposed to have power on them. And so it's just turning around and it's looking for that power. If it ever finds the power, it'll go bam and stop right there and knock that little lever over. But it's not doing that because it never finds what's powered up, because nothing's powered up. So we've got to get, so one of the things that would cause that is if these bands, right, if these bands were dirty. So we cleaned that didn't fix it. And I cleaned, of course, the wiper fingers that go on it too. That didn't fix it. So the problem is probably the selector buttons when you press them down, that they're not making good contact with the switches inside the selector assembly. So this is the underside of the push buttons. Right. I've got the power off so they don't hold in, but I'll show you how they work. When the power is on, or when you have a credit, this solenoid pulls in. That moves some stuff around, which allows the buttons to lock in. So there's a switch right here, and when the button pushes down, see the contact down there? See how that moves? So when you push down any of the buttons, that switch closes. And with this pulled in, it stays closed. Okay, and then when you come over here and you push one of these, see the two switches there? When you push one of these, it makes those connect. So with this pulled in, it makes it where both of them lock down, and that's what starts the motor. Well, then the motor is looking for power to be on those little pins, which is provided by these switches. So if you see this end switch there, hopefully that'll focus. See the contacts in there, and see how well, not corroded, but just how dirty they are. I don't have enough hands, but see, I'm pushing one of the buttons in. It makes different contacts connect, but they're dirty as hell, right? So that could be the whole problem. It could just be that it can't see it. The problem with these is this thing, there's a lot going on, you know. So it's really hard to take that thing apart and put it back together, right? So what I'm going to try to do is get some contact cleaner and spray in it, and see if it'll clean it up any and not make the world's biggest freaking mess. So I'm going to try to just put, like, you know, paper towel under it, spray contact cleaner on each switch, and see if that gets it where the right end works. You can also turn it on, put the, you know, with the credit on it where this is pulled in, and push down each button, and then check for voltage on the wiring. And you could also check with a multimeter to see if the buttons are, if the switches, the connections are, the contacts are connected like they should be. So, but I think that's my next big thing, is I've got to start working through this selector and get it where all the voltage is connecting where it's supposed to be. Fun, fun, fun. So I went to the store and I bought some contact cleaner. I don't really use this stuff, but I think it's the only way I'm going to be able to clean it. So they got this at Home Depot and Lowe's. So just to test, I sprayed it on this first one here. Let me see if I can get light on it and film it. All right, so what it's doing is, whoa, wrong button. If you look, I don't know how much of that's going to show. Where it's scraping is getting real clean. So basically I'm spraying it on there and then moving it, and it's cleaning the contacts just from the friction. It might work too if you just do it without the cleaner, but if it's wet, you know, it should clean a little better. So they actually do look like they're getting clean. So I'm gonna keep going through it. Oh, and it evaporates after you spray it on it. Okay, folks. So I turned it on and nothing caught on fire. It's telling us we can make a selection. So let's try. What do you think? Let's try K9 again. That's the last one, or second to last one. That one ought to be kind of one of the hardest ones, because I think it has to send the power through all the other switches. So let's see if K9 does anything. Oh snap. You saw the right end worked. Now the read end is going around and looking for it. Boy, it's trying. You know, I think it still might be the mech, because it didn't move far enough. It should have kept going till that piston went in and it lifted up the needle and put it down. I wonder if I can help it along. So the thing is so gummed up. I wonder if I put it in scan. Yeah, see, it's trying to do it with the scan button, but it should have done that with the operate. And for some reason it's stopping. It doesn't go all the way through the I'm trying not to break my needle here. It doesn't go all the way through the operation. But it sure looked like it. I wonder if I can, how can I get it hung back up? All right, it's in operate. It's moving again, so it should be able to hang up. Well, we're limping along, but it did select. Let's see if we can get it to select again. So there's E9. Let's try E9. Or let's do E0 because we already tried a 9. So we haven't done an E. So E0 would be the very last one. Yeah. So the right end spun around and clicked something. Now the read out is rolling around looking for it. It's got it. It's laid it down, but then it stops. So it's not going all the way through. Like it should have went farther. Like it, if you turn the knob, it'll go through the rest of its segment. But it should have. It may be hitting one of these switches too early or something. But I think we got the right end at least partially working. And then you see the readout is working. And then it tries to lay it down, but we have a problem once it gets the record down on the thing. It hasn't actually completely let go of it yet. And the turntable's stopping and everything's kind of hanging up. So I kind of need to figure out, I'm going to keep looking through that theory of operation and seeing how far we can get. But I think we might have fixed our right end problem by spraying contact cleaner all over the selection keys. And that's all for now. Join us next time as we see if we can get this thing working the rest of the way. So we've got the right end circuit apparently working, the selections. We've got the readout circuit apparently working, but we don't have it actually playing a record yet. But it's trying. It's even getting to the point where it'll lay the record on the turntable. We gotta be really close. We'll see you next time. So leave your comments below. Give us a thumbs up for taking the trouble to film this for you. And we will see you on the next video.